O besouro preto, o besouro preto mazado, o besouro preto mazado, besouro danado. Give thanks and praise, all you fantastic dissidents. Allow me to begin with Cash App, Cash App, Cash App, Cash App, Cash App, Cash App. All right, big respect. I'm getting really ambitious. I see a a need for deep deciphering on a pay scale that is way over any of our heads. But I think it needs to be done. I have a hard time refusing a worthy challenge. I have a very hard time refusing a worthy challenge. So I have to remember that I'm going to have to cut somewhere in the flow of this fascinating deciphering. One thing that I've claimed ever since my earliest days on the channel is this entire spell that I've been pursuing is directed to the entering of the United States into the One World Court, into the International Court. And those waters are so polyglottal. There are levels of possession within possession within possession when we get into international waters. So that apostrophe S becomes a triple apostrophe S, because the bonds are tethered to the international prize law way outside of our jurisdictional purview. And so a lot of what I do is decoding the supranational information. This morning, I made the most profound discovery that the art of what I do has a name. That using cross-referencing of multiple texts and sourcing different linguistical elements and turning over every stone to reveal the network of definitional conveyance under the surface level of reading words is called corpora. Corpora is a person who interprets the words and their international implication. It's basically it's like a gatekeeper for continental philosophy. In corpora, I'll bring a graphic forward that I made for my youngin. It's actually also describing what Capoeira has given me. My functional dyslexia and polyglottal privilege, combined with the philological allowances, makes me a lockpicker on a scale that I think Tesla says something along the lines of smart motherfuckers look like crazy motherfuckers to dumb motherfuckers. And that's kind of what I'm not really self-conscious, but I should be more self-conscious about making these international linguistical revelations work for me. I'm a corpora, and I learned it through capoeira. And if you know what capoeira is, it's absolutely fascinating to ponder, because academia, the first academy, was built on the gymnasia. And in Plato's Republic, they are describing capoeira word for word. They're completely describing the highest level of mastery of beauty is synchronizing the art of music with gymnastics. And from there, only from that combination of gnosis can true masters ascend. And I'm realizing that I had all these initiatory rites already in my repertoire a long time ago, and that's what informs the slick distant lens. It's a compliment. I see it as complimentary, but it's also alarming in some ways. So I'm going to actually talk about some of the songs that I sing. For anybody who ever initiates and learns capoeira, you'll realize that the songs that I sing before every episode are an encapsulation of the episode itself through the capoeirista purview. Today's song is the song of O Besouro Preto, the black beetle of Besouro. And the black beetle of Besouro is a hero from the capoeira pantheon. And he is a malvado. He's a malandro. He's a outlaw. And he's a Robin Hood. He's the black Robin Hood of Brazil, the OG. But he's way better than Robin Hood. And one of his skills, among many, is the ability to witness somebody in a struggle. The story is, I'll just tell the story, and the magic is clear. It's sympathetic magics, but of an order above and beyond. This story expands out into a great many things I'm not even going to give context to, so take this and run with it. Besouro is standing on a rooftop, looking down on a vagabond, a crippled, poor beggar in the streets. And the cops are going door to door looking for Besouro. Because Besouro's homies have a tradition of jacking the cops and stealing their billy clubs, and then having the collection of billy clubs on their wall as trophies. So the cops are a little shook because they're running short on billy clubs. So they're looking for Besouro, and Besouro's watching them look for him from the rooftops. And as the cops surround this homeless fella, this crippled homeless fella with his crutches, the cops pick the old man up and start shaking him down. Tell us where Besouro is. Besouro's he lives in the jungle in the Quilembos, in the where the runaway slaves and outlaws have built communities with the native roots of Brazil. Those are the Quilembos. That's where Besouro is bouncing around in freedom. He's watching these cops put the hurt on this old man. Besouro calls upon his manjinga and embodies the old man from a distance. And takes those crutches and puts the hurt on the police effectively. And after the police are incapacitated, Besouro retreats back into his body, and the old man goes away free. That is the origin of the song that I sang at the beginning of this show. And the spirit of Besouro is quite apropos for what I'm attempting to convey. It's so apropos. It's profound. It makes me suspect that the manjingueiros on high today have a root in the same mythological waters that I draw from. Otherwise, I don't think I would have been able to see this. Yeah, it's heavy. This is heavy. And another thing about the Slick Dissident project is one of the hazards of having a YouTube channel is outdoing yourself every time. Talk about a worthy challenge. Talk about a worthy challenge. Yeah. I fear what it means to outdo myself. I really do. I think we all should to some degree. But YouTube sure does make it fun. All right, here we go. So I just want to get a couple peripheral things out of the way before I disassemble this potent spell. First of all, let's just throw this the Joe Biden stepping down thing out into the things to take note of. It cracks me up how they, for a week or so almost, they make it sound like that Biden is one person making a personal choice. Like the entire seat of the throne of the most powerful man in the world is a matter of what he wants or not. That's hilarity. He stepped down on 7/22. 7/22. Fireworks should be going off. Pluto, which is Belphegor, which is Pluto, the number 9 station in the Enneagram, is Joe Biden's cause. His final cause on the stage is to play this role of Pluto, the slothful one. And sure enough, on 7/22, he steps down, and the moon is passing over Pluto at the exact moment that he steps off the limelight. It is foolishness to think that one individual has free will of any sort. I think a lot of us know that. The significance of the choice of what day the announcement would come was exactly in line with the moon moving over across Pluto in, you think, Scorpio? I think they're in Scorpio. I think. I'll bring a graphic. Also, talking about Biden's golf swing, there's the picture of his horrible golf swing is a perfect capture of the Hermit card. It's a perfect capture. There's even a steering wheel on a golf cart. The golf cart is like the Argos ship, the paper ship on there. There's even some one of his henchmen, one of his dudes walking through the screen on his phone, just happens to be walking by, just like the 3 dogs of Hades on the Hermit card. And even the angle of the golf ball slicing to the left is exactly the Hermit card, where the egg is just off in the corner. It's amazing how these things line up. And people want to take comfort in thinking that it's staged, that they lined these things up just perfectly to convey all this mundane redefining of reality just for the comfort of disbelief. I think we should allow a little bit of the mystic potency to just do what it does. So I'll bring that graphic with his golf swing and his something about, he's 81 years old. So there's the 9x9 magical square of the moon gives you an 81, I think, right? And it's also 18 is Argon, which means sloth. All things 9 adding up with him. The perfection of these numbers proves to us that there is a priest class of extreme tactical awareness at work. And I think it's actually highly valuable to put words to the spell so that it has no imminence in your subconscious any longer. I think that is remedy. The subconscious lacks the privilege of disbelief. Think of how, if you're comfortable with it, think of how disbelief becomes a comfort. And the subconscious doesn't have that. The subconscious doesn't have that. It's in there regardless. It's like you look at a picture and you wish you hadn't looked at it, and the more you try not to look at it, it's still there because the subconscious doesn't have the privilege of disbelief. And so I think what I'm trying to do when I put words to these spells and these synchronicities, these constructed synchronicities, I think what I'm hoping to do is to extract it from the disbelief of the subconscious and put it into the purview um, of conscious processing, and also fortifying and edifying against future spellcraft. Yeah, so 722, totally scripted, totally by the book. And one more thing I'm going to say now before I cut and get into this disseminating of a huge, huge spell. The Pussy Hats. Donald Trump has been the lust card through and through, starting with New York with him. Oh man, yeah, I got to get into New York. I went off the trail there. I'll come back. Starting with his real estate tycoon New York orientation. Well, this card is the lust card, hailing to the northeast coast, where all the way from Augusta, Maine, but also New York is the hub of strength and lust, but power hungry moguls in that area. Also, grab him by the pussy, his famous quote that had everybody up in arms, and the Jesuit oath. If you read the Jesuit oath, you will see all of the ingredients. Here's the strangulation cord. Here's the poison cup. All the things about the Jesuit oath are right here. So the Pussy Hats are fascinatingly ironic. I would almost say that that was not so much an attempt at killing Donald Trump. It was an attempt at dressing him up in a level of ironic retribution that is way above anybody's head. It was above my head, but these cards really revealed the game. That cup is his earlobe. And the line, it's I think it's called the Shafir cut. It's Ludwig Wittgenstein's mathematical contribution symbolically to math. That he had that symbol, and he had what was called the NAND. N-A-N-D is a neologism, and it means not and. So there's cognitive dissonance packed through and through. It takes a long time to unpack what the hell they're talking about with self-canceling words. But this becomes Donald Trump's ear after the shot. And that holding up of the earlobe. Well, now Donald Trump is wearing a pussy hat. They put a pussy hat on Trumpster. So the level of ironic retribution is deep, dark, and profound. It's the kind of ironic spellcraft that causes the hiccups, that causes the mania and the frenzies in an amazing way. It's even hard to talk about. It's hard to put words to. But I'll just bring a graphic. You can see the pussy hat, and that is the earlobe that he's grasping as he walks off the stage. And the fist bump, somebody in the comments, big ups. I totally agree that the fist bump was not necessarily a Bellamy salute, but it is sufficient enough to reinforce the icon of this card that he has been living in all along to a great degree. And in my previous works with the Enneagram, this card was in the 8th spot for a controller with a shadow of lust or domineering. Domineering. That entire event was earcastrated. Big ups to my comment there. I forget who that was, but big ups for the comment, because It was all ear castrated. It was all ear castrated. I think that's going to be the title for this video. So I just want to put that in the line of sight. In the line of sight. You got Where's Waldo popping a cap right through that earlobe. It's amazing how these cards are the blueprint, and they come off as prophetic after the fact. But it's just this is the tabletop exercise. This is the disclosure. This is the revelation of the method. Another interesting aspect, I said that it's a chaos spell, and I keep saying KOS, and that's just me having a slip of the slick tongue. It's K, Phi, Z. The Phi is kind of a W, and if you've studied De Beers and Shakespeare, you know of the magic of the W. It is very correspondent to the divine twin, we'll say. So the K, the W, and the Z facilitate the chaos spell. And just a quick run through again. This is Chumpster on the podium. This is his sniper bodyguards, the Secret Service, looking through. This is a Indus at the Ara Altair with the telescopium and the microscopium. So it is perfectly correspondent with the snipers over his shoulder who are supposed to be watching his back, paying super close attention. Telescopium and microscopium. They're worried about the peephole. Also, this has the green of the John Deere tractor, as well as the pinnacle of the roof, the slope of the roof that was too much for them to be allowed up there, and also the sniper aspect. So they are over his shoulder. They're supposed to be watching his back, because on the tanning shed, hiding on the tanning shed, just like Wilkes Booth, is Where's Waldo up here. It's really profound. And then the shot happens, and then we are down here. So it's ZWK, Zvukszwang, compulsory. It's compulsory. When somebody puts you in a Zvukszwang in a board game, it means you have no choice but to react. ZWK, Zvukszwang. But it's also KWZ, it's a chaos spell. It's the most removed from. It's nice and safe because it was staged, because it's all theater. We have the comfort of disbelief. We can just dismiss this all. Oh, it's just nonsense. It's a fugazi. This is a ploy to get us into the international courts. Everything I've been doing since the earlier days of my project is revealing all of the maneuvers that have edged the Overton window closer and closer to getting the U.S. Bound up in the international courts on wild, wild levels. All right, I'm going to cut there, and then I'm going to get into this remarkable Karl Popper, Wittgenstein, and I said John Popper earlier. It was my mistake. Karl Popper. Karl Popper versus Wittgenstein has been expounded on to an absurd degree. Wittgenstein's Poker, if anybody wants to read that, you'll get a sense of why Karl Popper and Wittgenstein had acrimony. And I'm looking back at it. I'm having a hard time seeing who's who. I don't think anybody's a good guy here. But there's something about the Vienna Circle being able to read Wittgenstein's work twice before they called him in to tell him that they think he's their new guy, and he gets throttled by the Venice Circle. He gets throttled, and before the end of his life, he wants to pump the brakes. He tries to go back on almost everything he did, and I don't know if people are really seeing the late Wittgenstein in the world. I think the Vienna Circle throttled the early Wittgenstein in dangerous ways. And the late Wittgenstein was like, oh shit, what have I unleashed? What have I unleashed? And then, I forget the name of the author of that book, The Jew of Lentz, but that author made a piss poor case. It's so heinous. It's absolutely heinous, but it's so typical of humanity to reduce things to something ultra simple just so that they can play good guy, bad guy through history, where they're not talking about the ramifications of the effects of these little controversies and rivalries. So the author of The Jew of Lens made the claim that because Wittgenstein and Hitler were in the same class, and Hitler actually wrote something uh, putting some repugnance on Wittgenstein because he was an outcast and different. That tiny amount of evidence was blown up into a whole book and a whole bunch of people paying attention to the controversy about the claim that Wittgenstein was the reason that the world wars popped off. As frickin' if. But making that claim gave people, it gave purchase to acrimony in a way that so people can actually uh, vicariously fight for whatever they associate with, one side or the other. So that vicarious battle of the minds, it played its role back then. I think it's playing its role again. And so I'm going to pause and come back to deocculting how the George Floyd events, which were it was Rodney King 2.0. Rodney King happened in the nighttime under the headlights, under the spotlights at night, in front of a vehicle. We could totally run these cards as a perfect layout of Rodney King. And then in the middle of broad daylight, they did the whole damn thing again in front of Cup Foods. The Cup Foods. Cup Foods is a weird kind of urbanic anagram for it's fucked up. It's fucked up. That's fucked up. Yeah, that's Cup Foods. And so that single sign above the ritual becomes an icon that is attached to this card. This is the root code, the cultural touchstone, and then can be repackaged into Joe Rogan's studio and reenacted when Donald Trump goes running off with his hand on his ear castrated ritual. And then he gives the Bellamy salute fist bump. So that's some of the context of where I'm going here. We're going to go from the Rodney King was in the night at nighttime in the headlights of a chariot to George Floyd was the same thing reenacted in broad daylight under the Cup Food sign to anchor it into the Joe Rogan studio of this Lust card. And then it was unpacked again with Donald Trump. I'm going to take a break so I can get as many graphics as I can. All right. BR. Thanks and praise. Something occurred to me in the K-O-Z, K-O-Z of that chaos spell. It dawns on me that Where's Waldo is in the position of phi, which corresponds to the W. It's a WW. This is a shot heard around the world. Yeah. It's so fascinating when I even turn over my own ponderings, what ponderous evidence comes to surface. Seeing the W as Where's Waldo. Yeah, that was just, that almost slipped through the slick schizophrenic sieve. Yeah, W is Where's Waldo. Sometimes I wonder if, the brainstorming apparatus of the think tanks that run the world, that we call individuals, their entire public relations teams behind all of these personas. And we call them public relations team just so we can stay in comfort. They're actually think tanks. In the original think tank, one of the earliest one is Aristophanes' derivative of Socrates in the Clouds. That's one of the first think tanks. It was called the Thinkery. And they gave it a neologism to make it sound goofy, like The word for that in Greek was sheer hilarity. The name of the thinkery was hilarious to people at the time. But the techne of it has been passed forward in spycraft at large, beginning with the fog of unknowing that is Aristotle, that was then forwarded through Thomas Aquinas. The Aristotle think tank, I think I'm perceiving it pretty much as Sicily, as the original tutors of the world, giving people just the ingredients of philosophy minus that which would actually empower them. And those treasures, the missing treasures of philosophy, are a worthy holy grail. They are quite worthy. And I got a whiff of where things need to go in terms of unveiling the Aristotelian think tank chicanery. I got a real good sense. So maybe more on that to come if I ever find the perfect words to convey it. But I just wanted to keep in mind that when I talk about these personalities, I call it the Oswald effect, where we reduce the possibilities down to a single person, when in fact the single person is a whole series of spycraft and the Actors Guild in full effect. So when I talk about Oswald, everybody thinks of just how much could one dude do. If you have researched Oswald, you will realize that he was maybe a primordial Discordianism. A lot of characters were popping up all over the radar, wearing the fingerprints of Oswald, so that when people went to look into who he was, there were threads going in places that didn't make any sense, just like the tortoise and the hare. The tortoise, allegedly, in the Bugs Bunny version, the tortoise has a bunch of his friends lined out ahead of the race. And so all of those repeating turtles to Bugs Bunny appear to be one Oswald. Meanwhile, Slick is telling you that that is the Aristotelian fog of unknowing. And so many authors from the days of old, Mark Twain, give thanks for what we benefit from, but the fact of the matter is these guys are prolific on a level that puts it all into very suspicious light. There's quite a few authors who are like that. They're so prolific and they're so cunning and dialed into the military-industrial complex priorities that it's just impossible. Maybe not, but they become an avatar really. And but it can be sussed out in reasonable and mundane ways when you realize that psychology, astronomy, and philosophy are sharing the last remnants of the fourth pillar of the quadrivium, and also hermetic interpretive affluence. Sometimes I start a sentence and I have no idea where it's going to end, and then I go back and I'm like, damn, bro, that's a fucking hell of a sentence you just said. But it's all there. All right. Rodney King is fully articulated right here. Here's the car. Here's the spotlight and the cops, the military-industrial complex, the MIC, microscopium of the peephole of reducing you to feeling small in a vast, uncaring, infinite Aristotelian claim of space. That's right here. This will be, remember, Rodney King was reaching up, trying to stop them from striking him as they're bloodying him even worse. And then the death card is the cops themselves, the uniforms they have to wear. They're dead on the inside to do these things. Now, I say this, and I want to also keep the caveat that I believe that this is completely stagecraft, but it's stagecraft that is blocked out like the Globe Theater right here on the schizophrenic board uh, that I had to work really hard to access. This arrangement is speaking on a level of truth that is not available on the first order of presentational immediacy. I had to go through the prime number reductions to get these cards prioritized to this level of revelation. That's a lot of work. So, the Rodney King plays out right here. And sure enough, I don't even have to go through the step by step. You can also see the George Floyd event. And that Cup Foods is collecting the vitriol, the cup of precious stones from the Whore of Babylon. So this cup is a chalice of collective vitriol, which it worked then. It's going to work again. And what's fascinating is that I see it having played again into the George Floyd events. And it's so psychically scattering to even say, for me, when I say the George Floyd event, my mind explodes in associations. We know about Pink Floyd and just another brick on the wall. And that icon of the word Floyd splashed in blood on the wall seems to have prophesized the events that kicked off acrimony at large. But also, another thing about the Floyd and the Pink Floyd is that they are throttling the death drive of Sigmund Freud. And Hannibal Lecter, just recently, was re-instilled into the psychic sphere so that Freud's, all the complexes of psychology have been reanimated just recently, and I believe that Hannibal Lecter was mentioned in the Chump's appearance on the wrestling event, whatever that was all about. And I'll say this: I hate giving these guys any credit. It pulls me apart to even give them any credit. But all of the great philosophers, again with the gymnasia, is the foundation of academia. Um, Plato was a wrestler. That was his stage name. The broad shouldered one, that's his luchador personality. Abraham Lincoln, a wrestler with the 301 winning record. He only lost once, and the one time he lost, he was a real good sport, helped the other guy up, just like in the debates. So the wrestlers and the luchadors and the false acrimony is all just vitriol management. Art. It's all art craft. So this rivalry is it is a key ingredient here. I'm going to go all the way back to the claim that Wittgenstein was the reason why Hitler became such a domineering force to be reckoned with, to march everybody against everybody. In that book, The Jew of Linz is making a super shitty claim that it's Wittgenstein's fault that Hitler's such an asshole. Oh, it's so controversial. You can't look away. There's a morbid curiosity to it that, as much as you wish it never happened, so you don't even have to refute it, it doesn't go away. The subconscious does not have the privilege of disbelief. That is just unfortunate truth. It's right in line with the thing of where I say, don't think of a blue ball. Oh, too late. Listen to me. All right. And that is the Zugzwang, the compulsory maneuvering. So the claim that Wittgenstein, this is his entire biography is packed into this card. It's fascinating. All the way down to the fact that he was said to carry a little satchel around with him everywhere. Sometimes they said it was his Tractatus. Other times, even in his classrooms, they said he would carry aerated bags full of vegetables because he thought that was the best way to preserve the vegetables. And so his followers, his fan base, started emulating him and also carrying their vegetables around in a aerated bag. These are, they come across to me as uh, ritualistic signifiers to hail the persona down the line. Also, Wittgenstein's poker is very likely embodied in this card. I've seen it in roundabout ways in other art forms. If you look at the art, some of the famous images of Wittgenstein's poker event, which was like 10 minutes of argumentation that expanded out for people who've written entire books on that 10 minutes. It's nuts. But then also go look at the Bronze Age mindset, which is this card again, Michael Aquino. Thank you very much. Same last name as Thomas Aquinas, by the way. So Michael Aquino Artcraft is imbued into Bronze Age mindset, which is the cover of that book, is this card dismantled and reconfigured. And the same thing goes for Iceberg Slim's book. I think it's just Pimp. And if you read Iceberg Slim, so that cover of that book is also this card as well. And if you read that book, read it through both its surface level lens, but also read it as how a government official should conduct his job as a pimp. It serves a superior cause to the politicians to read Iceberg Slim's work. And Dave Chappelle unpacked Iceberg Slim for everybody for full disclosure, and it went right over their head. When he told the story about a pimp who's got a hooker who's on her last years, she's got too much mileage, but he tells her he's going to set her free after this one last job. After this, I'll let you go, babe. Just put this little Mickey in homie's drink before you get down with him, and then we'll set you free in the morning. So she goes into the Target. She slips all of the medicine in his drink, and she gets out of the bed, and he's not alive anymore. She calls Iceberg, and he's like, "What did you do? You gave him too much. I told you to give him half." "You didn't tell me half. I said half." "No, you didn't. He's dead now. What am I going to do?" "Oh, you dumb bitch." And then he calls a couple of movers who come into the room and roll up the body in a carpet and carry it out into the van and disappear. He pays the movers right there in front of her, and he looks at her. He's like, "You dumb beep. Now you got to work for me for free. All of your money comes to me for the rest of your career. Otherwise, I'll tell people what you did." Turns out, Iceberg Slim runs this game on all of his long-miled hookers. And the movers, they know this routine because the guy rolled up in the carpet, he wasn't dead. He was faking it. And now Iceberg has got her hooked for the rest of her life at full benefit. That story that Dave Chappelle told, which was really funny the way Dave told it, it was really funny. But laughing at it, you're missing its revelation because that's what COVID was. Onto the retirement population, onto the demographic that Obamacare, which is anagram for macabre OA as in way, the macabre way of Obamacare gave them everybody's demographics, and they know what Iceberg Slim psyop to run on people at what time for optimal effect. All right, that was a super crazy side rant. So we know that the George Floyd event, which does have piggybacking cultural iconography, just that is just condensed into an emotional trigger. That event, at first appearance, seemed acrimonious enough as it was, but as soon as the rumor was circulated that direct chauvinist Derek Chauvin, that he and Floyd had a relationship earlier that nobody knows about, is exactly the claim that the Jew of Linz was making regarding Hitler's relationship to Wittgenstein. So the victim Stein of George Floyd corresponds to the directions of Derek Chauvin, explicitly revealing how to spark off revolution and get people to lose their shit. And the hypocrisy that we all had to choke on when some of us were told that they were friends and they had beef with each other from their job in the past. Only some people knew that part of the formula. The other half of the population is not on that channel. They have no idea. And it actually doesn't matter anymore because they're too emotionally invested. So to tell them that Derek Chauvin and George Floyd had beef before what we saw, it's fascinating because that furthers the divide. And it is so profound to see the Jew of Lentz unpacked into a psyop of such magnificent, despicable volatility. Now, Karl Popper was threatened by Wittgenstein with the hot poker. And the two sides of that story has people writing in two different directions as to who their favorite soap opera actor is in this 10-minute debacle. So the George Floyd was and here's another thing I need to say. Race is an extremely over mundane. It's a word that is taken for granted at the highest cost. We misinterpret the word race 15 different wrong ways before we even come close to seeing its most potent definition. It's most nuanced. Because it's the most nuanced in the economy of ideas, it has the most potency. So when you hear race, some people think of competition and Achilles versus the turtle, the rabbit versus the hare. And not realizing that some people on the performing are actually entire think tanks that we call public relations teams. Also, race means your ethnicity, your genetic inheritance, which is a precious treasure that gets everybody's hackles raised to the max because it is your genetics that inspire you. That's literally where your goosebumps come from. When your ancestors harmonize, that's where the goosebumps come from. The most nuanced definition of race is the planets, the pantheon of the planets, in these incredibly large-scale elements that are in the subconscious because they're removed from our purview, and most people dismiss it anyways, and all the horoscoping, and there is a vanity to using these systems to reflect on your own life or your own destiny. It is a vanity. That's whatever. It's a vanity. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It's just an aspect of vanity. But that vanity of using it for personal fortune telling and foreseeing future outcomes, it lays a cover fog for how the system works on the mass homunculus. So there's something of a vanity to seeing it as relating to you personally. Trust me, I know. But what Slick is constantly trying to stay in the context of is how this system is the flag signals for the homunculus to respond. So the homunculus is a big dumb airplane, and these cards are the flagmen telling the airplane to watch your wing over here because the right wing needs to be rectified, and the left wing is doing fine, so swing to the left, and they flash these cards, and the grand homunculus responds. That was laid out in chapter 1 of Plato's Republic. He says, wouldn't it be easier if instead of having symbols and letters far away that we have to talk about them from such a removed space and a scattered distance, shouldn't we take them all and put them here on a giant wall on very large scale to talk about the individual experience as it is macro ramifications on the larger model. All right. So, George Floyd goes down in front of Cup Foods and a heap of bodies of police officers. He can't breathe. Um, and he even asks for accommodation. He's like, no, take me out of the car. I don't want to be in the car. You know, all these things. So that was a closing off, the ending of his life. And it was a snuffing out um, of a symbol for people who had misinterpreted what the symbol really meant to begin with. They would jump to all the wrong conclusions, just like the human homunculus loves to. And the flagman has actually steered the airplane right into a catastrophe, a catastrophe. So when Floyd was snuffed out and they sublimated the Freudian death drive to the max, that was a call, a battle call. And so a black man surrounded by cops gets snuffed out. And it is approximately a leap year later, I think it's one leap year later, when they reverse the spell and George Floyd is resurrected as Donald Trump, this victorious white man who's going to lead the new revolution. And the black and the white aspect, it is a checkerboard Floyd. It is about race. It is about racing and keeping people sublimating their vitriol, which is how you make money. But it's also it's an anode cathode. It kind of lays a chameleon camouflage, because you would never make the association of, oh, the cops killed a black man, and oh, the cops are helping this white man take over the world. You would never think of it that way because race gets in the way. But in alchemy, it is flawless execution. The black, the white, and the red. It's a flawless execution. So the fallacy of the primacy of presentational immediacy keeps people from realizing that the cops snuffing out Floyd were a perfect reversal. They were perfectly inverted by the cops cupping around Trump as he cups his ear. The whole thing is ear castrated, and they take him off and drive him into the sunset. They literally drove him off into the sunset. And so there is a revalorizing of the conservative agenda. And I have quite a few incredibly conservative black friends who are all about Trump and were very loathful towards the George Floyd event. And so they're getting a taste of catharsis. They're getting a catharsis, and they don't even realize that it is a perfect catharsis for the homunculus to just bite into desperately. The fact that miniseries have taken over our entertainment experience has caused a drought for catharsis. And because people were binge watching on series after series after series, they no longer expect resolution to the issues and the conflict in their life. They just don't expect resolution anymore. And the first time they see alchemical resolution dangled in front of them, like the carrot, they're starved for it. They're starved for it, just like the zombies begging for brains. The catharsis is very much the new race bait. When I say race bait, I'm talking about the bunny that the dogs chase around the racetracks. Rabbit hole chasing. This is the race bait. And everybody thinks it's about the color of your skin or your genetics. That's fine. But it also, it is the planetary wanderers, the stars, the planets are the racers. And there's even an aspect of erasing these truths from your mind every time you say it. making a difference when you defer to rinse what you learned and what you grew from. So, Karl Popper's acrimony with Wittgenstein is really the through thread here, because we know George Soros had his hands all over the Floyd event, but George Soros is an acolyte of Karl Popper, and Karl Popper was loathful of Wittgenstein. And that is the gradient of high chicanery that is above my pay grade. It's completely above my pay grade. But to have these cards of revelation of the method sets me up to perceive this same spell that they will play out again on the cosmic stage. And now I'm going to end on, I'm going to say two things. I picked up today that Netanyahu's birth name is Melikowski. Scary shit. Melektaus is hailing the Iblis of the Yazidis. Talk about over my fucking pay grade. But I think it's ABC that was the peacock. You know, they are the readers of the auguries. That's why there's Fox News. That's why they have animal totems, and they're an unquestioning augur reader to divine future outcomes for the dogs of war, for the Dow Jones. So yeah, the augury readers of the media have been running agendas of these ancient feuds and steering us in ways that, and putting words in our mouth that are not serving us if we're not careful. And then this is black pill, 2,000 times overdose. For Where's Waldo to be the butt of the joke, the race bait, that everybody's going to be chasing this rabbit hole for a very long time. The Where's Waldo of whatever that kid's name was. Basically, Where's Waldo? For them to be chasing that and aiming vitriol, and every time it comes up, it just throws people into a mania. This is really sad. I think they're going to come after the pets. I think the pets are going to be the vector for the next outbreak. And if anybody has seen Kingsman, I believe it's just the first one. You don't need the rest of them. The Kingsman shows how the CIA and the MI6 they trained their cadets to save and rescue a dog, and then attach to the dog and save it over and over and over. And then they get a directive comes down from on high, but you got to kill that dog that you attach to. And that's breaking the soul of the agent and giving them the license to kill. And in the darkest of ways, humanity has already been beta tested for this when they actually got people to inject their children with the experiment. That's what broke in 1984. That's what broke Winston. I think I got that name right. Might have that name wrong. Winston. I always ruin his name. I think it's Winston. But they tortured him until he begged them to torture his loved one instead. He begged for them to punish her instead. And putting the masks on the children and injecting them with a bunch of bullshit, they broke us. They broke us in room 101. And so the next chapter is your pets. It's going to be your dogs. Because animal testing and animal experimentation is an analog to the Overton window of humans' tolerance for human testing. And when we refuse to test on the animals anymore, then the humans are thrown in the risk path. So, that being said, all you animal lovers out there, there is a tenderness in your heart. There is a tenderness in your heart that will need fortified. A lot of you vegans out there, man, bless your souls. Bless your souls. There is a vulnerability in the program that a lot of people consider their last straw. A lot of people consider these things their last straw. I find it strangely dark that they put the children under the bus before the dogs, because the children should have been the last straw. Black, black, black pills. Hope you can tolerate it. Hope you can fortify your heart for this kind of magics. I hate to be the bearer of such bad news. And I think with that, I should call it quits. J.D. Vance, some interesting things in his name. The John D. Cave. The John D. Cave. Probably John D. Covenant, you know. Yeah, that character is quite a fascinating not and doublespeak, self-cancellating, trite cliches. Trite, self-canceling cliches. That's what you can expect out of J.D. Vance, going forward. So yeah, keep your ears to the ground on these trite, self-canceling cliches. I'm not sure where that phrase comes from, but I freaking love it because it keeps us working against ourselves. So yeah, keep your ears not castrated. Listen closely to what's being put on offer in the world. And I'm going to be doing some renunciation of words. That's something I'm going to work on. I'm going to take some of the words that I find dysfunctional and replace them quite actively in my life. And that kind of disciplining your own words, I think there's a level of kung fu mastery that I only dream to be able to rise up and to meet. So yeah, renunciation of words. Consider that. Consider like what words do you never ever want to circulate, because there's a certain liability to these trite, self-canceling cliches. Yeah, the newspeak, it's in full effect, y'all. All right, I think that was everything. If I missed anything, maybe I'll throw in a post production epiphany little cut clip. All right, everybody, big love and respect. It's simple. Don't believe the hype, but don't let the hype run games in your self-conscious either.